wanted to conclude by giving us a chance to look at how this might impact the economy of Michigan and jobs. So the question I have for the panelists is, does this issue impact the strength of state education institutions, government departments, or the overall state economy? In what ways does it impact it positively or negatively?
Absolutely. When you look at the Fortune 500 companies, the majority of them offer health insurance benefits to domestic partners. They recognize the diversity of their employee population. And they do that not only because it's the right thing to do, it's the fair thing to do, but economically it's beneficial to recruit and retain the best and the brightest. Gary mentioned about the economic downfall that our state has had in the last decade. Absolutely true. We've lost industry, we've lost technology. How are we going to attract people who want to come to our state? When you look at what the majority of companies have done, including Dow Chemical, General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, Steelcase, is they've recognized and supported the diversity of their employment sector. When we have policy and laws like this that says to a certain group of people, you are not valued, you are not wanted, you are not going to be treated fairly, we are doing a disservice to our state in terms of being able to attract new industry. You know, Michigan has the second highest exodus of college graduates in the country. Now, part of that is due to the lack of jobs, but also part of that's due to public policy messages that say to certain people, you're not wanted, you are not valued the same as other people. So it certainly has an economic impact. Richard Florida, who's done a number of studies looking at states and cities that are doing best economically, have noted that policies and practices that promote and support the diversity of its work population are the best situated to attract the best and the brightest talent. He talks about the 3 T's. Tolerance attracts talent, which brings technology. And I think that's true. And I just wanted to put out some factual information about health insurance for same-sex partners. Because one of the arguments that the state has made that, you know, this is very costly. When you look at the actual people who are covered by this law, based on Governor Snyder's, you know, signing statement saying that it doesn't apply to colleges, that it also doesn't apply to Michigan civil service employees, it's a relatively small group of people. And as I mentioned to you before, it's not all through state taxpayer dollars. Some of it's from local monies that they utilize to decide themselves the terms and compensation for employees. But also, these premiums are taxable income to the employees, so they're paying taxes that come into the state. Many times these same employees contribute to the cost of premiums. They pay a third, a fourth, a fifth, maybe even half of the monthly premiums. So by cutting people off these benefits, we actually, in some instances, are taking away tax revenue to the state. And secondly, we're going to make it difficult for them to be able to get health insurance on their own, and they're going to have to rely on state-funded insurance programs, like Medicaid, that Michigan runs. And then finally, what I wanted to mention, in addition to about health insurance benefits for these people, we've actually looked at the public entities that are offering these health insurance, and what we came up with is that less than 1% of actual employees are even covered under these programs, and the overall cost is less than 0.2% of overall health care costs for employees. There was similar litigation over a law like Michigan's in Arizona, and it was struck down as unconstitutional. And one thing that the federal court said, the fact that you might be saving some money, even at a minimal cost, doesn't necessarily make it a legitimate basis to have a discriminatory policy. And I would say the same thing about Michigan's law as well. The savings is pretty insignificant, and the ironic thing is, while you're saying you need to save money, you have now opened up the possibility for a public employer to cover just about anybody else who they want to cover. Any family member of a public employee cannot be covered under this law.
And Gary, I know you had touched on the fact earlier, you felt like it would be negative, it would be an additional burden for taxpayers to bear if there were benefits provided for domestic partners. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, a Harvard law professor wrote a piece in the Wall Street Journal back in 2003 and said that, for example, the Canadian government had found that when they legalized homosexual marriage, that it was going to cost taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars just to extend one benefit to the new category of beneficiaries created by the new law, and that was retroactive Social Security benefits. Just that one benefit, hundreds of millions of dollars. The National Gay and Lesbian Task Force itself had this kind of coverage for its own employees and canceled it because they said it was prohibitively expensive. And that was reported by the homosexual advocacy newspaper in Washington, D.C. Now, I happen to have with me the study that Jay cited about the migration of college graduates, and he is entirely correct that Michigan has either the first or second worst loss of college graduates of any state in the country. But of the 9 states that have the biggest growth of college graduates, 8 of them have marriage protection amendments. And of the states that have lost those populations, 6 out of 9 do not have marriage protection amendments. So in fact, the reality is that people are voting with their feet. They're moving from states that don't have marriage protection amendments into those states that gained population of college graduates. 8 out of 9 of them have marriage protection amendments. And the 9th one, North Carolina, will have it next month, as soon as it's approved on the ballot, like has been done in 31 other states. Similarly, with the shift of population of all Americans aged 25 to 34, of the 11 states that have lost population in 25 to 34-year-olds, 73% of them do not have marriage protection amendments. And of the 39 states that have gained population in the last decade among 25 to 34-year-olds, 72% of them do have marriage protection amendments. So in fact, there is a migration going on, but it's 2 states that have marriage protection amendments. Now, I'm not suggesting that's why people are moving there. I am suggesting that disproves any notion that there's any significant effect on where people will move looking for jobs based on whether or not a state does or does not protect marriage as being only between a man and a woman. And as to this question of equality, from a legal standpoint, every American who qualifies under the current definition of marriage has the equal right to get married, has equal access to the law, equal access to the institution of marriage. What's being sought is not equal access to the definition, to the institution of marriage, but to radically redefine marriage from what it has been. Jay's organization does have a position on polygamy. You can look it up. It argues that a guy has just as much right to have 5 wives if they love each other as 2 men have to get married. And professors at the University of Michigan argue that if you want 3 men and 3 women, they have the same equal right. Well, if you're not prepared, I'd ask Jay, why does the ACLU discriminate if it's not for allowing polygamy? I mean, why does it argue for equality to redefine marriage once, but then say it will discriminate against people who want to be polygamous? Our position is to reverse it and look at what's the positive. What should be the ideal for families and for children, and that is to have a man and a woman married, committed to each other and to children in marriage, for the sake of the children, if not for anything else.
Let me just, to loop back to this particular topic, give Leslie and Liz an opportunity to respond in terms of how this might impact the economy and jobs. Ladies?
Well, I can talk about Delta College. Delta College cannot offer same-sex benefits to our employees because of the amendment that Gary Glenn helped pass in 2004. And we have sometimes a tough sell to some professors and employees who come here and are looking for equal treatment of their partners and their families and don't get it. There are some people that work here that cannot have their own children covered by the same benefits policy because that child did not come out of their body, but rather their partner's body. Okay? Or they were adopted by one partner, but cannot be adopted by the other because of laws that exist in Michigan that prevent that adoption from happening. And so children, not only partners, children of same-sex couples cannot be covered many times by Delta. And so Delta is now forced to treat gay employees and their families differently than straight employees and their families because of the 2004 amendment and the way it's been interpreted by the state Supreme Court. And again, that's a tough sell for people that have options that can go elsewhere to other states in which their children and their families can be covered. And I'm going to say, from my own perspective, my personal perspective, I think what gets in the way of providing for a good, healthy family is not whether your spouse is of the same gender or not from you. I think it's based on the access to resources that you have to take care of your family. And this law that was passed in 2004 made it so lesbian and gay families have an even tougher time of providing for their own families, and that's bad for kids.
Leslie, did you want a chance to respond?
Well, again, as a latecomer to this panel, I think I may want to ask some questions. And one of the questions that I have for the other panelists is if the impact of the same-sex benefits would affect 2% or
As far as costs, 2/10 of 1% cost.
2/10 of 1%, then I'm confused about the argument that the taxpayers would suffer a considerable burden.
Well, I agree with you, Leslie. As I mentioned before, this is taxable income to the employer. They pay income taxes. It goes to the state, goes to the state coffers. Some of these people, like somebody like a Barbara Rambler, who's not going to be able to get a health insurance policy on her own, might have to rely on state subsidized health insurance programs, which taxpayers pay as a result of this law. I agree with you.
Let me actually, this might be a good break point here, because I know we have a lot of folks out there in the crowd who have questions and comments that they would like to make. So let's take some audience.